Hey guys, it's Mrs. Goldberg. We're going to go ahead and continue reading chapters 34 and 35 of Front Desk, and this will finish off section 3. Before I start reading, you will notice that on the Google Classroom page, I did show the question and author for section 2, where we had the author talking about answers to questions that other students have written to her. If you can remember that, we also viewed them from section 1 in class together. And then after I finish reading the rest of section 3, I will then post the question and author responses from the author into Google Classroom that you can also view. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 34. That night, I sat at the stairwell in the back thinking of something my uncle once said. He said that if you break a bowl, you can put all the pieces back together, but it will never be the same. Water will seep through the cracks. That's what it felt like when my mom called me a bike, like our bowl shattered and we never be whole again. Mrs. Q spotted me sitting on the stairwell and came over and sat down next to me. She asked me what was wrong. I shook my head. I didn't know how to tell her the worries swirling in my head. Number 1, my mom was horrible and mean. Number 2, she hated me. And number 3, what she said was true. At the thought of number 3, the tears welled in my eyes again. Mrs. Q pulled me into her arms. Between sobs, she got it out of me what happened. Oh, honey, she said, rubbing my back. Sometimes adults say stupid things they don't mean. I rubbed my nose. But she does mean it. She totally means it. I thought of all the times when Mom had said my English was not as good as the white kids, and I cried even harder. My tears stained Mrs. Q's lovely new shirt, and Mrs. Q glanced down at the wet spot. I'm sorry, I said. It's okay, she said, smoothing out her shirt. Nothing that can't be fixed with a good wash. She smiled at me, just like you and your mom. No way, I said, shaking my head. I looked at Mrs. Q with utmost resolve. The bowl is broken. There's no unbreaking it. Easy now, Mrs. Q said. She put her hand over my hand. I don't know about any bowls, but I do know your mom, and she loves you so much. There was a lump in my throat. Mrs. Q raised her soft blue eyes to my wet brown ones. You know that, don't you? She asked. Then why is she always saying such mean things? I asked. Mrs. Q thought about this for a while. I don't know, she finally said. Your mom's been working a lot lately. She's probably just tired, stressed out. Heck, maybe this isn't even about you. Maybe this is about her. Maybe people have told her her English isn't good. I thought about that couple a while back who asked my mom to take a picture of them with their camera. Still doesn't make it okay what she said, I said, sniffling. Of course not, she said. It's a horrible thing to say. Of course it is. Even if the bowl's completely not broken, it's severely cracked, I told her. Mrs. Q chuckled. Well, you'll just have to put some tape around it then, she said. A tiny smile escaped. I hugged Mrs. Q and thanked her. I was starting to feel a little bit better about number 1 and number 2 on my list, but not number 3. Number 3 I carried with me into my sleep, dreaming about the essay contest and how I could possibly win if I was only a bike. That Sunday, my dad fought my mother for the chance to take me out. As usual, we loaded up the car with empty cans. We went to the recycling center. Then after that, instead of exchanging for pennies and going to the lake, my dad made an unexpected turn into a shopping center. My dad hates shopping. What's going on? Where are we going? I asked him. You'll see, he said, getting out of the car. He pressed open the door of his stationery shop. The store was called Scribbles, and I could tell it was fancy just from the way it smelled. It smelled like expensive air freshener, the kind I always wanted to get for our front office, but couldn't because it was way too expensive. Row upon row of pencils adorned the shelves. I picked one of them up and nearly fainted when I saw the price. $5.99? I tugged on my dad's elbow. Let's go home, I said. Just a second, he said. Before I could even realize what was happening, he took one of those $5.99 pencils and told the cashier to ring it up. Dad, what are you doing? I asked him. He ignored me and handed the cashier $6. The entirety of our recycling money that day. I watched the whole thing unfold with my mouth open. Outside the shop, my dad kneeled down so that he was my level. You are not a bicycle, he said. My eyes searched his. Do you understand? He asked. He reached down, took my small hand, and opened it. He put the new, expensive pencil in it. I gazed down at the pencil. Its shiny green sparkles glistened in the light. I couldn't believe my eyes that something so beautiful could sit in my hands. Dad, this is this is way too nice, I said, giving him a hug. I'm never, ever going to lose it. I'm just going to look at it. I'm sorry, let me repeat that. I'm never even going to use it. I'm just going to look at it. My dad laughed. Oh, I hope you use it. You're a fine story writer, he said. I shook my head. Not in English, I said in a small voice. In English, too, he insisted. I've read your English. I wanted to chuckle because how would he know? If my English was 12 exclamation marks bad, his had to be at least 50. Still, his words made me feel warm and toasty, and I tucked them into my pocket. Use this to write down everything that happens, he said. Who knows? Maybe someday it'll all seem funny to you. Maybe. I nodded and smiled, holding my brand new pencil up to the sun. Chapter 35. When we got back to the motel, there was another Chinese immigrant waiting for us. Word was really getting out about the baseball cap. Uncle Feng was an animated guy with thick eyebrows that moved up and down as he talked. He told us that he used to be an accountant back in China and now was working as a writer over in Riverside. That was until he got fired. You won't believe this boss of mine, he said at dinner. This time, my mom made lettuce. Literally, just lettuce. Thanks to Mr. Yao withholding our wages, it was all we could afford. But stir-fried with a little garlic and soy sauce, it actually wasn't half bad. What did he do? He fired me for scratching my nose. What? I said. Really? That and the fact that a customer slapped me, which by the way was completely uncalled for. A customer slapped you? My mom asked. She was crazy. I honestly don't know why she slapped me, he said. All I was said to her was, "Hey, baby." My mom nearly choked on her tea. Well, no wonder she slapped you, my dad said. Uncle Feng put his chopsticks down. What's wrong with "hey, baby"? Americans are always saying, "Hey, baby." It's what you say when you greet somebody. Everybody knows that, he shrugged. It's what you say when you greet a girlfriend or a boyfriend, my mom told him. Uncle Feng turned bright red. Are you serious? He asked. My mom nodded. Uncle Feng got up and started pacing the room. He put his hands to his face. I had no idea, he said. So many people were saying it. I just thought. My dad chuckled. It's all right, buddy. Happens to the best of us, he said. I cannot believe this. I was saying it to almost everybody, Uncle Feng said, scratching his nose. Something about the way he was scratching his nose caught my eye. He was scratching with his middle finger. Uncle Feng? I asked. Yeah, he said. He turned to me. His middle finger was still in his nose. From a distance, it looked like he was not doing something nice. What? What is it? He looked so innocent and earnest, and at the same time so ridiculous. I just had to help him. That night, I made Uncle Fung a pamphlet of American phrases and what they actually meant. Mia's book of American phrases and customs. When you hear, get out of here, do not actually get out of there. It's just something people say when they're surprised, like, get out of here. If someone says something is a piece of cake, it doesn't mean that they're going to give you cake. It just means that it's easy. A piece of cake. Do not be alarmed when you hear the phrase riding shotgun. It doesn't mean that they have a gun. It just means to sit next to the driver in the car. Don't feel insulted when you hear the word dog, as in, what's up, dog, as in DAWG, or how you doing, dog? Dog means friend. If someone is calling you a dog, they're not being rude, and they're not calling you an actual dog. If something is sweet, like sweet car, it means it's good. It doesn't mean that it literally tastes sweet. Similarly, if something is sick, as in sick bike, it also means good. I know it's a little bit confusing. The word dude is a slang term from a male friend. It should not be used when addressing the police, your boss, a senior citizen, or a female. And do not stick your middle finger up for any reason in America because your middle finger is considered offensive. Use your index finger or your pinky instead to scratch your face. Do not take your shoes off everywhere. Americans like to wear their shoes inside the house. And do not comment on how someone's appearance has changed. I know it's a compliment in China to say, you look like you've gained weight. But trust me, Americans do not like it. The pamphlet went on and on. I tried to be as detailed as possible and put in as many phrases, gestures, and idioms as I could think of. Uncle Fung was very graceful when I gave him the pamphlet. He said he would study it and memorize the rules before he applied for his next job. I also showed him my notebook with all the names of the restaurants the other immigrants had gotten fired from, so he knew where to avoid working. Uncle Fung copied the restaurants down and added some names of his own. He also added some comments next to the other stories, such as, hang in there, and I feel your pain, brother. I smiled. I liked how my little notebook was becoming a message board for the immigrants. Uncle Fung left the next day as the first of many jack-o'-lanterns appeared in Mrs. Q's window. It was almost Halloween, and I hadn't really thought anything of it. But then I started making a killing in tips. I guess people felt sorry for me because every single customer who came through on Halloween put $5 in my jar. They probably thought I should be out trick-or-treating instead of working in a motel. You know who else thought I should be out trick-or-treating? The Weeklies. It's Halloween, Mrs. Q said. You gotta go trick-or-treating on Halloween if you're a kid. You just gotta. I don't have a costume, I said with a shrug. No costume, huh? Mrs. Q asked. Be right back. An hour later, Mrs. Q came back all wrapped up in toilet paper. So were all of the other Weeklies. They were mummies. Trick or treat, the Weeklies announced. My face brightened when I saw Hank. It had been a while since I saw a smile on his face. Come on, Mia, Hank said, handing me a roll of toilet paper. Let's go get you some candy. I took the toilet paper and hopped off the stool just as my parents came into the front office. You might want to wait 10 minutes, my mom said. Why? I asked. I hear our cable's down, she said with a wink. A small smile escaped from my lips. Though I was still mad at my mom for calling me a bike, I thought it was very cool that she had called Loopy. Loopy, the Weeklies, and I walked up and down Meadow Lane under the moonlit sky, all of us dressed up as mummies. Loopy and I giggled under the toilet paper, going up and pressing on doorbells. As we walked, I asked Loopy whether there was Halloween in Mexico. Loopy said there was something similar called Day of the Dead, and people would pay their respects to deceased loved ones by visiting cemeteries and building altars called ofrendas. At the mention of deceased loved ones, Loopy got really quiet. I guess she was thinking about her grandmother. Are you going to go back and visit your grandmother? I asked her. Mexico was so close. just a few hours away by car. Lupe shook her head. I don't know, she said. She didn't seem to want to talk about it. What about you? Mrs. T asked me. You guys have Halloween in China? I laughed. No way, I said. I told Lupe and the weeklies about our first Halloween in America, how we didn't know what it was, and were so freaked out by the strangers coming up to our door, dressed as goblins and witches, that we turned all the lights out and hid behind our sofa. Lupe laughed so hard, bits of Reese's peanut butter cups came flying out of her mouth. I smiled. In total that evening, we got 18 candy bars, 5 Reese's peanut butter cups, 27 Tootsie Rolls, 5 packets of Skittles, and 6 lemon heads. Hank said we did well. He explained that when it came to candy, there were multiple tiers. At the top tier, you have your full-size candy bars, followed by your mints, the junior mints, peppermint patties, etc. And all the way down to the bottom tier, lollipops, and that sort of thing. You know what you guys are? I asked the Weeklies and Loopy. What? Top tier friends, I said. Hand in hand, we walked back to the motel. And boys and girls, that is the end of section 3. I wonder what will happen next. In a little bit, you will see that I have posted a Flipgrid for you to respond to. In class, we have spoken about the book, head, heart, and you will have your questions. And those are the 3 questions that you will respond to. You will need to have your notebook out so you can respond inside of your notebook first to record your thinking, followed by recording your response on the Flipgrid. I cannot wait to see all of your wonderful faces and to hear your responses. I will see you